Hi there, welcome to the Accidental Pop Star here on YouTube. My name is Ali Beg. If you're watching for the very first time, you're more than welcome. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you are wondering about what the concept is behind this channel, just let me quickly explain. So what I do is I interview pop stars, both past and present, about their own experiences in the industry and see if our stories compare. Now, when I say our stories, you may be wondering, what gives me the right to speak to these people? So I was once a member of 90s boy band Bad Boys Inc. We were signed to A&M Records. We had relative success all over the world before we went our separate ways in the spring of 1995. Now, I was plucked from obscurity. I was completely thrown in at the deep end, had no idea what to expect, and the whole experience left me slightly baffled. Saying that, I was very fortunate to have performed on Top of the Pops, been on the front cover of Smash Hits, and had hit records. So the idea behind the channel is to see if the people I'm speaking to have similar stories to my own. For this latest episode, I was absolutely delighted to have caught up with 80s icon Sinitta, who had a number of hits in the 80s, including Toy Boy and So Macho. More recently, she's appeared on numerous British television shows, including This Morning, Loose Woman, and more importantly, The X Factor. She's great fun, and I had a brilliant time talking to her about her career. Welcome to the Accidental Pop Star, Sinitta. Good morning. How are you doing? It's lovely to meet you. Thank you so much for coming on. Are you fine?
I'm really well, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Oh,
Should I say us? Because I have my red toy poodle Scarlet who might pop up there.
More than welcome. More than welcome. Right, let's jump straight into it. Can I take you back to your childhood first of all? Because of your mother's influence and her own successful career, do you think you were always destined to work in the entertainment industry?
I definitely think so. Because I think growing up in the dressing rooms and backstage and trying everything on and being around everyone, I genuinely enjoyed the atmosphere and I felt like I could do it. You know, I learned everything she did, line by line, word for word, ad lib for ad lib. And so I kind of felt like, oh, I'm going to do this when I grow up. Yeah.
Do you have memories of when you first started to understand your own talent that would eventually allow you to have a career in the industry?
This is interesting. I think I was one of those. We remember back in the days, you used to get albums and they had the words on the back of the cover so you could sing along.
Yeah.
So I used to sit in my bedroom singing along with all the music all day long. That was my pastime, only child. So that's how I entertained myself. And I used to sort of try and match the vocals of whoever I was singing along with.
Okay.
And I think I felt like I sounded okay, like I could pretty much sort of match with most people. Unfortunately, I wasn't singing with Whitney and stuff like that growing up. But, you know, so I think I kind of felt like I could sing. But meanwhile, I was trained, classically trained to dance, so ballet and acting at London Academy of Music and Dramatic Arts. So I knew I could act and dance, but singing was the thing I wasn't trained for. But I felt like, you know, I can sing in tune, I can keep harmonies, you know.
Did you actually go to your mum and say, Mum, can you listen for a second? Because I think I've got something here. Did you ever do anything like that?
No, I never did that. But I was probably, I was very confident of myself as an actress because I used to get little bit parts and I actually started in children's television. So I do a drama show for children's, for Thames TV, it was ITV, called Thames in those days. And you had sort of 20 minutes to choose a cast, think of a story, make up a script, build a kind of set out of these blocks. And it was like a little sort of live, what do you call it, improvisation class. So I was very confident as an actress. But and because I was a trained dancer as well, what started to happen, I started to get castings for musicals.
Yeah.
And the bonus bit would be that I could sing because they'd always sort of say, oh, can you come back and sing a song? And I'd sort of think, oh God, I've got to sing now. But I get through the singing part. So I think I thought of myself as somebody who, an actress and a dancer who could sing well enough.
see, that's really interesting because do you think, particularly in this day and age, that you have to be multi-talented, particularly when we, like, let's, for example, talk about the West End. You have
Hmm.
to be able to dance. You have to be able to sing because maybe on occasion you could only just dance or you could only just sing and it wouldn't really matter if the two entwine to get a gig. But now I think you have to
Hmm.
be multi-talented. Is that right?
Yeah, I think it's probably always been that way because I
Yeah.
think that's why I managed to do so well because I was considered a triple threat.
Yeah.
If there was a musical if there was a musical being cast and they needed a black girl my age, I was probably going to get the job because, like you said, there were some people great actors, some great singers, some amazing singers, but who couldn't, didn't know the left foot from the right.
Sure,
But
sure.
because I could do all three well enough, I'd usually end up lead role or at least the first understudy.
Can I jump forward to when you met Simon Cowell?
Hmm.
What attributes did he have that made you trust him enough to start managing your career?
Well, when you put it like that, I sound like a crazy person because my answer would be that he was funny.
Okay. Humor,
It
humor.
was
So the
literally that
humor
he was
sold
funny.
him.
Yeah, he just wasn't like the scary man at the record company. I've been signed to a record company called Magnet Records, and I
Yeah.
had interviews with most of the big labels, RCA and Red Bus Studios. In fact, I loved Tilly at Red Bus. Um, Steve Hansa at I think Hansa Records. Um, but he seems such an unlikely record company boss, for someone to be in that in charge position. There were a few labels after me at the time. The music that they wanted me to sing was soul,
Hmm.
soul lovers rock, and I'd made a few singles like that and done quite well. But I was fascinated with Madonna and Janet Jackson and kind of saw myself as a kind of hybrid of that kind of thing. And everybody else was, oh no, but you're really cute, you've got a really sweet voice, and we see you like this. And Simon was the one who kind of said, well, if you sign with me, you can sing what you want. And I was like, really? And he said, yeah, but we haven't got any money, so we can't give you an advance. It was like all the bad news. You can't have this, you can't have that, you can't have this, but you can sing what you want. And because he was funny and would let me do what I want, I went with him.
Okay, that's really interesting again because how much of him telling you that you could also be in control of your own career was a selling point? Because if you can just slightly indulge me, I always felt totally out of control of of decisions that were being made on our behalf. And it made me very
Mhm.
uncomfortable. So for you, how much of that was a selling point?
I mean, that was probably the main selling point. But to be clear here, it wasn't that I could be in charge of my whole career. It was that I could sing pop music rather than soul. Like he
Okay.
understood the vision. He
Okay.
saw he saw a gap in the market. He understood that, well, why can't we have a black pop star?
Yeah.
We had Five Star, the sort of English Jackson Five,
Yeah.
but why can't we have somebody who's, a black girl who sings pop? He got it and wasn't trying to pigeonhole me the way the other labels were. But it wasn't really a kind of you can have complete artistic control of everything. We didn't really have the conversation in that way.
Hmm.
But the fact that he saw me as a pop star, because he was like, the way I like the way you dress, like we could put you on TV exactly the way you are. So I didn't feel like he was trying to change me. He was
Okay.
kind of saying, what you are is it. And I like that.
Okay. But you were entitled to your opinion on your career.
I was entitled to be a pop star.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
wouldn't say going all the way along that I was in charge of song choices and all those things. In fact, I sang a few songs I definitely didn't want to sing,
Yeah.
but it was like, this is the song.
Okay. We will come on to that later because there is definitely
Yeah,
common ground there.
yeah.
When Simon took over your career, and started to manage you, was that when the record company basically offered you the deal? Was that all sort of part of the package?
Okay, so Simon was not really he was my manager, but he was never officially my manager. Simon was the head of A&R at an independent label
Yeah.
called Fan,
Fanfare.
and so his job was to find the artist and the songs and the whole thing. They didn't have any other artists. So this is how crazy I am.
Okay.
RCA, Magnet, all these big labels, but this funny guy with no artists, no hits, nothing. That's who I want to sign with. but because there was just a kind of chemistry that I was like, I know that I just felt like it would be fun to work with him.
Yeah.
Um, but I didn't have a manager, so we kind of were doing it between us. I knew a lot about the music industry because my mother obviously had to hit records. My auntie Amy Stewart had hit records, so I kind of knew the process of taking your acetate, to to the clubs and getting them to play it, and that whole sort of thing. So we decided we'd sort of work it out between us.
Hmm. Okay, interesting. Can we talk about So Macho? I'd like to jump forward to that because when
Mm-hmm.
the initial chart position was not as successful as first hoped,
Uh-huh.
what do you think went wrong?
Um, the funny thing is that I mean, I was one of those kids that was doing demos and singing on people's tracks and in the studio and doing people's if songwriters needed to have their songs recorded to take to publishing companies. So I used to do a lot of people's songs for them in the studio.
Yeah.
It was great for me because I'm getting recording experience. Great for them because they were getting their songs sung so they could take it to publishing. I don't think I really expected to have a hit record because I knew so many singers who didn't.
Okay.
Like, even my mother, she'd recorded for years and had records out that did quite well.
Hmm.
But, she wasn't a pop star, like a recognizable pop star or anything until around this time when it happened. My auntie Amy Stewart had become a bona fide, international pop star. But I grew up amongst so many amazing singers who were jobbing singers, jobbing actors, but nobody was famous. So to me, I made a record. It was out there. I was doing the clubs.
Hmm.
People were liking the music. I felt like I was in the music industry. It didn't really matter that we weren't a hit yet because not many people, it was very Boy George, he was one of our crowd who made it into a big star, but most people didn't become superstars. But if you could make a living singing, I considered that being successful.
Okay. So in your mind, did you have a level of expectation? Because to me, you sound so relaxed about the whole process that maybe you didn't.
Yeah, no, it was just. I mean, I was really young. I was on TV,
Yeah.
doing children's TV. I was kind of everywhere. I was in the theater. I was on TV. Now I'm making records, but it was all just I'm in the show business was what it was for me. I'm in show business. Hopefully, I'll never have to have a proper job. It was like that.
The when it was re-released, there were some significant changes, like for example, the
Mhm.
sleeve of the record. Did you get
Yeah.
involved in that decision process?
Well, what was interesting is that because the record was flying in the clubs
Yeah,
and in Spain and abroad and everywhere, but we couldn't get them to play it on the radio.
yeah.
And Simon, the genius that was Simon, worked out the reason why they weren't playing it is because the when people received the single which had my face on it, they would see me. And, this is the days when music was still segregated, believe it or not, like 86, 87. So they'd see my face and assume, oh, that it must be a soul record or a Lovers Rock record, and they'd send it over to the soul division of the radio station. The radio, that side of the radio station would see me, take it out, and they go, oh, okay, let's listen to this, hear pop music, and go, oh, this is pop, and send it back. So we had this going on and going on. And Simon said, I reckon if we take your face off the cover, we've got a hit because everybody likes the record. Nobody can understand why nobody's playing it. So he took my face off and put the Medallion Man
Hmm.
version of cover on, and it was almost like overnight everybody was playing So Macho.
Again, so intriguing and interesting because I remember, and I hope my memory serves me correctly here, but Boyzone did exactly the same. So Boyzone put out Love Me for a Reason, which was their first
Mm-hmm.
single. But what they
Mm-hmm.
did was they sent it out to all the to all the radio companies, almost like a white label,
Mm-hmm.
and nobody knew they were a boy band. And I think that was absolute genius because at that time, so that was still roughly when we were around, the market was
Mm-hmm.
starting to become slightly saturated. And there were so
Right.
many boy bands in the offering, and we could see so many boy bands coming. And I thought
Hmm.
that was absolute genius. And what Simon obviously did was genius as well. Did you understand to get radio playlists was vitally important, whether you got the A list, the B list, or the C list? It didn't really matter. Did you understand in your own head how vitally important that was?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
did think I did understand it, but again, like I said, it rarely happens. You know, you're
Yeah.
surrounded by loads of people who want to be successful singers, and they're making brilliant records, but you never ever hear of them. So you don't know that you're not just going to be one of those people. But Simon and I, he was pretty determined, and we'd go around all the clubs, and we'd go around all the radio stations, like just turn up with our 12-inch, with our acetate single, and be like, "Hi, this is Sinitta, this is so and so play." We had a little bit going for me at the time because I was like I said, on children's television, and
Yeah.
I'd done some sort of quite big theatre. So there was a buzz, you could say, an underground kind of buzz about me. I wasn't famous, but the industry
Mm.
knew that there was this kid that people were quite excited about. Um, but he would sort of explain, if we get this, if we get that. And of course, I'd heard these conversations before with my aunt and with my mother. And at that time, Radio One was the one. But it was Radio One,
Yeah.
Capital,
Capital
and
Records.
London Radio,
Yeah.
that the one that used to be by Tottenham Court Road,
Yes.
Pat Sharp,
Yeah.
and David Jensen, Kid Dave Jensen. So we kind of targeted the different DJs, and we'd stand outside their radio stations and kind
Brilliant.
of chat, and
Brilliant.
eventually wear them down, and then it'd be like, "Oh, come in." In those days they could say what they wanted to play. They had a producer, but if they liked you, they could put you on as well.
Yeah.
And so we kind of wormed our way in to the right places. But like you said, once you get playlisted, it's like, oh my gosh,
You're
suddenly
on your
you've got
way.
a turbocharge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're on your way. Could you feel the momentum building, and how exciting was it for you?
Yeah, I could certainly, it was a big difference because, like I said, we'd released the record a year before or something,
Mm.
and it
Mm.
was nice. All the records released, but like I said, so what? So was it 20 million other people's. But this time it was, oh my God, we've got a midweek chart position.
What was your midweek chart? Can you remember?
I can't remember the first one, but it was definitely into the top 40. It was one of those that,
Brilliant.
this is
Yeah.
going into top 40. And it was like, wow, really? Okay. And that had never happened before. So this was exciting. And then they were because we were a small label, there was independent pressing plant as well, making the records. So Simon and Ian Burton, who was the head of the label, they would be going to this plant at night, kind of coaxing the guys with more cash to print us more of our copies than somebody else's, because we couldn't keep up with the demand for the record.
Mm.
And then it would be like, okay, midweek, okay, 33, okay, 27 or something. And it was like, oh my God, we're literally going to, we're going into the charts. And it's a crazy different thing, because then you are a bona fide pop star. Because with
Yeah.
that, Top of the Pops, don't know if you remember Rob and Ron,
Yes. Yeah.
who were the biggest pluggers in the business. They were our,
Yes.
our pluggers. So they'd be sort of talking to us and getting excited. And, we can get you on this, we can get you on that. Mad Lizzie on Breakfast TV is going to do a workout to your record. And all this stuff starts happening. Yeah.
Let's talk about Top of the Pops. So, when you first appeared on Top of the Pops, did it feel surreal? And the reason I ask that is because, and I've said it before, on other interviews on the channel here, I kick myself to this day that I let the day go by, that I didn't take it all in, and I did not appreciate the significance of what I was just away to do. Did you take it all in?
Okay, so again, mine's a slightly different experience because I was a dancer and a kind of person on the scene. I used to appear on Top of the Pops as one of the vibe makers, like Soul Train.
No
They
way.
sort of plant teenagers in the audience to just
Yeah,
dance and look good. They dress you up just to sort of vibe and dance. So I used to be a paid
no
vibe person
way.
at Top of the Pops. So
Brilliant.
I knew everybody. I knew the floor managers, the directors, I knew the
Okay.
wardrobe people, everything. So for me, it was like going back to school, turning up, but this time I'm on the stage. So
Wow.
it was incredible. It was surreal. It was like, oh my God. And I knew exactly what to do and what they wanted
Yeah.
because I'd sort of been part of it from the other side. But almost probably 2 weeks before that, I even found the clip. A friend of mine found a clip for me a few months ago. 2 weeks before I made my first appearance on Top of the Pops, I'd been on the show standing behind one of the DJs, sort of going, yay, when he cheered
No
on
way.
somebody else.
That's absolutely brilliant. So you
Yeah.
knew exactly what was expected of you.
Yeah, kind of, because I knew, and I knew the studio, it looks huge. I knew it was actually tiny. So all those things that normally blow everyone away, that, wow, is that it? But it was like, oh my God, I'm actually on the stage. But I knew the significance of it because when we were there as the sort of backing dancer things, when you sort of have breaks between, or someone had to repeat their performance because it was all pre-recorded, you're standing there kind of looking at the pop stars,
Mm,
Joan Jett, or,
mm.
on the stage, and you're there and they're the stars and you're the dancers. And it's amazing to be in the room with them. And sometimes they'll wave at you or say something. And this time I was the girl on the stage, but I knew the dancers and they were just chatting to me as normal, going, so how does it feel, Sinitta? What are you thinking? Oh, I suppose you won't talk to us now, will you? And it was all of this.
We are desperately crying out in this day and age for a musical show like Top of the Pops. Um,
Yes.
for the modern day
Because you
art.
don't even know what's going on now in
I
the
know,
industry.
I know. It's like I talk to some people, like people who are a lot younger than me, and
Mm-hmm.
if I mention Top of the Pops, they're like, "What?" And
Oh, no.
I find it criminal. I find it absolutely criminal that people. Actually, I find it very sad that a generation of people will never get to know what Top of the Pops is or was.
It's crazy because it was, and even though it was here in the UK, it was probably the biggest, most
100%.
significant music program in the world. I mean,
Absolutely.
Madonna, people flew in from around the world at their own expense to come and be on Top of the Pops if they were invited.
Yeah.
Top BBC weren't paying people to come and be there, but if you got into the charts and you had a spot, you either had to make a music video or you flew in because it
Mhm.
really made a difference
Yeah.
to be on that show.
You were
And
guaranteed a hit
that.
record.
And the rest of the world followed, didn't they? Like if you were in the charts in the UK, you're going to get looked at in Japan, in Germany, in Spain, everywhere else in the world.
I mean this, my next question, I mean this with the greatest respect. So, with the power of hindsight, do you think the choice of song after So Macho was the wrong one? And if so, did you feel a sense of frustration at the time? And the reason that I ask that is because I believed that our second single, and again, I mean this with the greatest respect to the people that were involved in the process, was a
Mm-hmm.
seriously bad choice. And I think it
Mm-hmm.
did more damage than good because I think once you have, I think you're under pressure. Once you have a number two hit like what you did, I almost feel like your next record has to be even better to keep that momentum going in
Mm-hmm.
the power of hindsight.
Momentum,
Yeah,
momentum, exactly
momentum.
what they used to call it as well, wouldn't
Yeah,
didn't they? It was
yeah.
about momentum.
So, do you think it was the wrong choice?
Do you know, I actually don't think Toy Boy was the wrong choice because it was, well, I didn't have like an album of songs. I had a record. I had two singles. I had Cruising and I had So Macho.
Yeah.
And uh, it was,
Did you release Feels Like the First Time after So Macho before
oh,
Toy?
sorry. No, what it was, so feels like the first time, wasn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
So I'm
That
thinking
that's the
a
song I'm
bit.
speaking about. So do you think that one was the wrong choice?
Um, I could see why they did it.
Hmm.
Because we had the amazing Jelly Bean Benitez producing it, who was producing Madonna at the time.
Okay.
The backing track was almost the same backing track as Madonna's Get Into the Groove. In fact,
Okay.
I'm sure he just put different words to it. And it felt like a hit. It did well on the American soul charts,
Yeah, I saw
the
that.
dance charts, but it didn't do well on the pop chart here in the UK.
Hmm.
So I think what they did is because So Much was so massive, I think they thought, you know what, we need to come back to trying to make her a real artist. Like Matcha was more like a novelty singer. Now people are aware of who she is. Let's bring her back and let's launch her as a soul artist and let's go after the Janet Jackson kind of market, 5-star market. but it's not what Europe wanted from me because
Mm.
they bought it, but it wasn't big like Toy Boy or the follow up.
Yeah. So did you feel, because it didn't quite chart in the UK, did you feel like you were almost starting again?
I think so, but it felt different because with Feels Like the First Time I was then touring and doing all the clubs and everything in America.
Mm.
So I had a very different experience because I was playing to largely all black audiences in America with Feels Like the First Time. And then when I'd sort of do So Macho as my encore, they'd all be looking at me like I was crazy, like they didn't understand what was going on.
Really?
So it was like having two different audiences. It was like, okay, so I sing black music in the States and I sing
Yeah.
pop
Yeah.
in Europe. That's how it felt. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Um, did you did you ever feel nervous about questioning decisions that were being made on your behalf? Did you ever feel the need to speak up, or did you just trust in the process? Because I wish I'd spoken up more, I have to be honest.
Right. In the early days of it, it was all very much just going with the flow.
Yeah.
But I genuinely liked the songs like Toy Boy when it was written for me because it was Stoppik and Waterman. They
Yeah.
were killing it at the time. We realized as well we needed a writing team instead of
Mm.
just taking random songs from random people. So we were very excited to be working with them. And when they wrote Toy Boy, it was what was being written in the newspapers. I had a lot of things because I'd done a musical with David Essex,
Okay.
Mutiny on the Bounty.
Ah, did
So
you?
So Much was a hit at the same time as this musical was sort of making me a household name. So the newspapers used to write about me every single day. There'd be some random, stupid, crazy story. And at this particular time, because I dated David Essex and now I'd broken up with David Essex and was dating a boy my own age, it was like Sinitta's got a toy boy. I didn't even know what that meant or anything at the time. But when Mike, Matt, and Pete, Stockake and Waterman, wrote for me, they decided to write about Toy Boy because they said that's what everyone's talking about. That's topical at the moment. We've written her a song called Toy Boy. And I went in to see them. Within 20 minutes, we made the track because I think I just got it. I got the humor. I got the kind of almost being cheeky back to the media, sort of like, yeah,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, got a toy boy and I want to. So it became more like that. I think I was more of still an actress who could sing more than a pop star, an actress pretending to be a pop star, is I think who I thought I was at that point. So it was just go along with it. Yeah.
Again, I think it was absolute genius because it was almost tongue in cheek,
Yeah,
and
exactly.
and I think, but I'm not sure you can be as tongue in cheek in this day and age because I'm not sure people have got the balls to do it. But I think it
Mhm.
showed a lot of guts to be that tongue in cheek about it. Do you agree?
I realize that now, but I
Yeah.
think my sense of humor. I think thank God for my sense of humor because it's gotten me through so many things.
Yeah.
But because, like I said, to me, I was an actress pretending to be a pop star, and this is my response to this, and this is my response to the media. And I think the media realized that that's what we were doing as well.
Mm.
So they sort of played back with us and pushed it more. And this kind of crazy relationship began with, and that's when all the crazy outfits started. Because
Yeah.
again, it was like, well, I'm not really Madonna, I'm not really Janet Jackson. I'm kind of this parody, kind of jokey thing. And meanwhile, I'd still be doing my serious acting work in the background, theatre and film work.
Mm.
So it wasn't like I was really trying to be a pop star and to have a message and, you know, get my emotions across with my music. I was having fun just playing with the whole situation.
Okay.
And I felt like I was the person who brought fun into a room, a bit like being a comedian. It's like, okay, and here's Sinitta now, who's just going to make everyone laugh and smile, and that will be that. And I felt like that was my role. But later on, when I did become more invested in the music and wanting to actually, because I was into really good music. So it was like, you know what, actually, if this is really going to be my job, then maybe I want to sing something more like this or that. And that's when the problems crept in
Yeah.
because everybody was saying, listen, if it's not broke, don't fix it. You know, you're selling records, people like you, this is the formula,
Mm.
and we mustn't break it. So that's when I did find that frustrating, because by then I was actually thinking, well, maybe I want to sing something a bit cooler or a bit sassier, or maybe I want to go more in this direction. Maybe I want to learn how to play guitar, or, you know,
So
take it to the next level.
is that when you started to feel slightly out of control?
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's when I realized I wasn't really in control. I
yeah.
was in control if you can wear whatever you want. You can, we can't tell you what to say or what to wear or how to act, but this is the formula of music that you're going to sing.
Mm. Okay. We shall divulge in that a little bit later, but can I ask you about fame? I'd like to talk about the topic of fame.
Hmm.
Obviously, Toy Boy was a big record, got to number 4, peaked at number 4, so you're back on track, everything's great. Um, at this point, your fame levels have obviously risen. So, how did you cope with fame, and did you embrace it?
Um, yeah, I think with So Macho, So Macho and Mutiny made me kind of famous almost overnight. To
Hmm.
have a sort of hit record that stays in the chart. I mean, Macho stayed in the charts for 9 months, and Mutiny ran for 2 years. So I was in the theatre and on top of the pops, and of course you do all the
Yeah,
TV shows,
adverts, yeah.
interviews, etc., associated with that. So by the time we got to Toy Boy, what was good is that I'd had a little bit of a lull, because Feels Like the First Time hadn't been a hit, but you're still traveling around the world. You know, I get out of the musical and then I spend a year traveling the world promoting So Much, because everything's done a year, used to be a year behind, didn't it?
Hmm.
Because you didn't have digital stuff. So by the time we got to Toy Boy, I remember being really happy that Toy Boy was a hit. And then Toy Boy as well was a global hit as well. So,
Yeah.
you know, Japan, the rest of the world. Um, I didn't really feel any differently until I went to Japan and further countries, and you're kind of seeing other nations that don't even speak English singing your music back to you. And people, and that I was like, okay, this is this is huge, you know, and kids running after you and things like that. Because here, I think you just feel like you know everybody, don't? Everyone's your mate. Cabbies go, oh hi Sinitta, how are you? You know, and you're like, oh hi. But when it's in another country, I think that's when it really hits you.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. We had exactly the same experience. We flew to Japan, and you think, you fly to the other side of the world, nobody's going to know you, and it was probably crazier than what we were experiencing in the UK. And
Yeah.
I struggled to get my head around it, I must admit. Did fame ever become a burden to you, and did it add any extra pressure to have hit records?
Um, I think probably the only pressure was the media, you know, but we kind of played up to it. I mean, especially like again, my whole persona was all about, you know, this cheeky sort of girl. So I was often being provocative and stuff, which was covering intense shyness, by the way, that
Okay.
I could slip into this persona so nobody knew that I was actually shy. Nobody even knew I was little.
Hmm.
People used to be like, oh my God, I thought you were about 5'11" because I wore short skirts and heels and stuff. So then they'd sort of meet me and I'd be like 5'4.5" and oh my God, you're tiny and you're shy and you're quiet. But I'd sort of morph. Um, but I think I was sensitive to things that were being written, you know, because you could write anything in those days. This is the days of the News of the World, the Sunday Sport, and all of
Yeah.
this. So I'd be getting all these kind of stories that would hurt my feelings, and I'd imagine that the world had read them and that everybody would be looking at me. And you know, you're kind of a bit narcissistic, but not meaning to be so, but because it feels like, because in your universe you're the only person in the universe, everything's sort of orbiting around you, isn't it? So you imagine that the world is reading these stories and judging you and looking. And you know, there'd be days when I think I can't go outside, you know, this person's claimed to have slept with me and I've never even met them, and
Mm,
I'm so embarrassed. And someone will be going, darling, it'll be fish and chip paper tomorrow, it doesn't matter, you know, it
exactly.
doesn't matter.
Yeah, exactly.
um
The
I
best
found
thing
that
that
stuff.
was the best thing anyone ever said to me. Said today's news is tomorrow's fish and chip paper.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's not like that now though, is it?
totally. Can I ask you, did the novelty of being a pop star ever wear off on you?
Uh, I think it was just a thing where I probably felt like it's hard to go from being so popular and so famous and so sought after to when, there's new kids on the block. I don't mean new kids on the block, the band, but newer people coming through, the people
Yeah.
are more interested, they're having bigger hits than you, and you're not so important or as popular anymore. But I kind of dealt with that by I was always a jobbing actress. I was always trying to work on those other things. I was always an actress who sings rather than that. But just silly things like from being chased and having to hide from paparazzi to turning up to events and them not even bothering to take your photo, things like that. I just used to find it embarrassing. But again, it was just that sort of ego thing where you kind of think, oh, does that mean I'm not good anymore? And you sort of have to realize, I mean, talking about mental health and things like that was very taboo. That wasn't done in those days. And it was all, you stuck a smile on it and it was tits and teeth and the show must go on. But you are kind of thinking, oh gosh, they don't like me anymore, or I'm not good anymore, or I'm done, I'm finished, and you're still like in your early 20s. So, things like that are hard. But luckily I had, like I said, my acting and my dance skills that I could go back into theatre and do other things. And then somebody gets in touch and says, oh, we've got a song for you, and suddenly you're having another hit again. But that kind of helped me sort of level off, because I did find it quite hard. You feel like you're being dropped from a high place, as if you've done something wrong, and you haven't done anything wrong. It's just that somebody else is, more popular now.
Yeah. Did you have a support network around you?
Not really, no.
Yeah.
No. And actually, I think that the feeling that maybe the record company is sort of going to go off you because you're not successful anymore, or they'll get somebody else, especially, remember me, I was the only artist on my label at first. So the idea of Simon having another baby, I mean, like, I was literally the record company's baby and main asset. So you're kind of always wanting to please them and to not lose their interest or belief in you.
Yeah, totally get that. A couple more questions and we're done. I'd like to ask you about the X Factor. Did you have to dig deep into your own experiences to be able to ensure that you gave the best possible advice to the contestants?
Do you know what? I didn't have to dig deep, because having been through all that and then going through the whole, there was a situation with me with Stockade Waterman that I was just very, untrusting. So once they didn't have songs for me, and then I remember being brought in and there was a conversation that it was time for Kylie to grow up now.
Yeah.
So they were going to be giving Kylie the kind of songs that they wrote for me, but they were going to give me a different kind of song.
Okay.
And instead of me embracing what those different kinds of songs could be, to me, I saw it as, they've got Kylie now and they're going to shut Sinitta down, is how I took it.
Okay.
When actually I probably would have ended up with a lot of amazing songs, because then they ended up signing Donna Summer, who was actually a lot older than me, and doing those songs with her. So I could have had a longer career with them singing those songs. But to me, it was like, it's time to park you because we've got Kylie now. So all that stuff happened. Sorry, what was your question? Was
About
there
having to dig deep to ensure you gave the best possible advice to the contestants on
Yeah.
the X Factor.
So once I got onto the X Factor, I think my whole heart and head was artist led, because it was like, okay, wow, you are people who are going to become pop stars overnight, but almost wanting them to think about it more than I did. Like, I just rocked up and it was like, okay, yeah, let's do it. And it happened and it went and it flew. But it's like, this is going to be a real career. You're going to be a brand. You're going to have to. So I was able to talk to them really from a don't do what I did point of view. Like, this is your real life.
Yeah.
Take this seriously. This could be the beginning of something amazing, or it might be an experience and might not happen. Like, prepare them more. And but I didn't have to dig deep. It was almost like it was cathartic. It was therapeutic for me to help them, because it was almost like going back and helping myself. Because if I could have had a proper word with myself and go back and go, listen, girl, You know, when those people wanted to take you to America to do this, you should have done that. And you know this, you should have, and you shouldn't have done this, and you should have done that. Because I was like just treating it all like, it was all just fun, fun, fun for me. It wasn't a career. My real job is acting, and I'm doing this singing thing, and it's fun, you know.
What is your opinion on the term manufactured pop star? And the reason I ask that is because we were manufactured by our producer, and it made me hugely uncomfortable knowing
Mhm.
that we were manufactured, knowing that I was plucked from obscurity, and knowing that I was there because of an image that I had, not down to talent. So, what I suffered from, and believe it or not, 30 years on, I still suffer from it, was imposter syndrome. So, what is your opinion on that term, manufactured pop star?
Well, the thing is, I think it's a bit mean, actually. I think it's mean that that term was created
Mm,
because it's demeaning. It's sort of saying you're not talented, you're not real, you shouldn't really be there.
mm,
When actually, manufactured pop stars have been happening forever. Motown had manufactured, they were kids on the street. Like nobody's just born a pop star. Elvis, everyone's got to sort of be creative, whether they're creating themselves or working with someone to come up with something. And when it's more than one person, the Jackson Five were the most manufactured pop group ever. They were almost beaten into, submission, weren't they, to
yeah.
sort of get the performance their father wanted out of them. So I think it's really demeaning and unfair on the artist.
Mm,
And I think, look at the Spice Girls.
yeah.
I think if you're a willing participant and you understand your role, what you're bringing to the project, then why not? What an amazing opportunity. Like, who wouldn't want to? When you do a musical or anything, you're all manufactured, you're brought in, you're taught your role to put on that performance. So to me, that's never been an issue. But I think once the artists grow up and want more artistic control or input, if they can write songs or play instruments and
Yes.
do things, if they're not allowed to sort of get involved at that level, then I think that can be really damaging and frustrating because then you start to feel like a puppet because now you're not really a willing participant.
Yeah.
You're trapped in a contract and you've got to play your role whether you want to or not.
Yeah. Totally, totally get that. Okay, last question for you. And I really hope you understand where I'm coming from with this question. If you
Yeah.
could turn back the clock and change any decision that you or the people around you made during your peak years, what do you think you would change?
Well, I saw a documentary, the Stocking Waterman documentary recently, and that's when I realized, oh, when they had me in to have that conversation about me working with them, me having to have different songs or me having my music career to have to take a different turning, I understand that they meant they were going to write songs for me in a different way. Probably songs I would have wanted to sing more than because I'd argue with them over GTO. I was like, why am I singing about a sports car? I don't even know what a GTO is. But then I'd get it once we did it. But I'd just be like, can I sing stuff that means something to me now? Because now I'm 18 and I feel like this. I wish I'd not just bottled and run out of the building, that I'd
Mm,
stayed and had an adult conversation, heard them out, re- understood the full plan, and not just panic. Because what I did is I ran out and then I didn't have anyone to write songs for me anymore.
yeah.
So then I was singing covers, and I think actually it would have it would have been okay. Yeah.
Sinitta, it's been absolutely brilliant. Thank you so much for coming on. I've absolutely loved it. Loved chatting to you. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. I will catch up soon.
Definitely. Take care. Thanks
Bye
for
bye.
having me.
Bye bye.
Bye.
So that brings the end the original interview with Sinitta. But just a few days later, I discovered that she launched a new website and podcast. So I thought what I would do is take the opportunity to go back to her to find out a little bit more about her new project. So tell me about this new podcast that you've got. What's it all about and what does it entail?
Well, okay, so it's called Sin's Angels.
Mm-hmm.
It's about 50, 60, 70 plus women and how we are this unique hybrid of a generation because we have experienced the biggest arc of change. So it's our generation, like, me recording music on vinyl, cassette players, there being only 3 TV stations, basically the old days, but we've kind of lived through that into, technology, the internet, mobile phones, all of these things that didn't exist before. And we're still fit as a fiddle, so we're going to be here for a while, but we're the only generation that are going to have that arc of experience and exposure. And yet 50 plus women are kind of parked and sidelined. So this business is to actually make bosses, businesses, marketing people, brands aware that actually we should be valued and being utilized, because we're actually the people who have experienced the arcs of change. And we should be the real influencers, I think, on the planet because of that. So it's kind of the other side of menopause. It's not about menopause. Yes, that's going to happen to everyone. But menopause is not a destination. It's an interlude, like pregnancy or, anything else. And on the other side of that, there is more, there is better. Everything is better, actually, once you've grown up and given birth to yourself. And it's all about you now. It's not about raising children. It's not society saying, by now, you should be married. You should be doing this. You should be doing... They stop talking to you when you're in your 50s. So guess what? You get to make it up and do whatever you want.
And you can find this on the usual platforms?
So it's going to be on Spotify. It's also going to have a designated website, singsangels.com, where, you can buy everything from sex toys to treatments to everything that will just make, the 50, 60, 70 plus woman's life more fabulous.
And I think you're currently exercising on a bike, aren't you?
Did I sound really breathless? I know.
It's because your head's moving like this. I'm thinking you're cycling on a bike.
Yes, just cycling around the streets of London.
Good for you. So there you have it. The fantastic Sinitta. If you get an opportunity, please do check out her new website and podcast. Just out of interest, if you haven't already subscribed to The Accidental Pop Star here on YouTube, I'd be very grateful if you would please consider. We are getting bigger, we are building momentum, and it just means we can bring you more guests going forward. Right, there you are. We are all done for this latest episode of The Accidental Pop Star. I really hope you enjoyed today's chat with Sinitta, and I'll see you very soon for our brand new episode. Bye for now.